Hello, welcome to today's episode of Unlock Your Blocks. My name is Elyssa, and I'm excited to talk to you today about something that you might not realize is actually helping you because it's probably stopping you from doing a lot of things. I'm talking about imposter syndrome. And if you have ever felt the strong inkling in your mind that you have no right to be doing something because who are you to do that thing, you know exactly how it feels to be working through imposter syndrome or to be suffering from it in some cases. So today we're going to talk about where imposter syndrome comes from, what it really is, where it comes from, what it's doing for you in a good way, and then how to actually release the parts of it that are unhelpful. So I hope this is helpful for you. Grab your self-care beverage and we're going to chat for a few minutes here about all the juicy stuff. So the definition of imposter syndrome in the Webster's Dictionary is the persistent inability to perceive that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. Okay, so thinking your success is undeserved and that you're nothing special and that you don't really deserve to be where you are, that's imposter syndrome. Now, we can use a broader definition as well because the broader definition includes just in general doubting your skills and your deservingness, thinking that you have no right to do XYZ thing because who are you to do something like that? Okay, so where does this come from? If you grew up anywhere near rural Indiana, where I grew up, you might have heard the phrase, don't get too big for your britches. This is what comes to mind every time I think about imposter syndrome, because you did not want to be too big for your britches. And what that means is to think too much of yourself. In grandmother speak back in the 1980s and 90s, that's what my grandma would say. Don't get too big for your britches. It was seen as a bad thing when we're growing up, right? Nobody thinks it's a good thing in general for you to be arrogant or selfish or like self-important, especially as girls. Little girls are taught to need less, to say less, to be less. Historically, that's what we're taught when we're little. And so being a girl who thinks a lot of herself, who is really self-confident, is unusual and can be looked down upon as her being too big for her britches, her thinking that she is a bigger deal than she really is. So when you grow up with those kinds of messages, and it may not be overt, you may not have had, my grandma never told me that I was getting too big for my britches, but she would use that phrase about other people. So it was on my radar that I did not want to be one of those people. I did not want to think I am more important than I actually am. And so if you grew up with any kind of indicator that you should not think more of yourself than who you really are, that actually qualifies as a tiny T trauma. So it's a developmental emotional need for every child to feel like they are all that. From the age of 0 to 10, every child developmentally can only really think about themselves. Now they can be taught kindness, they could be taught how to share, and they can be taught how to empathize with other people, but it does have to be taught. And in those first 10 years, it's very normal for us to assume we are the problem if there's a problem. Okay, so your little nervous system, if you deal with imposter syndrome as an adult, which we're going to talk about what this looks like in day-to-day life as an adult in a second, but if that is an issue for you now, chances are good that as a child, you learned to steer clear of thinking in an overconfident way, in really trusting your gut instincts. And what this does is it creates this distance between the decisions that you're making and your true self. Because now we're making these decisions based on what we think other people are going to think. It's like the OG people-pleasing syndrome. So when we have imposter syndrome as adults, it goes back to learning that we are risking rejection and abandonment if we think too much of ourselves. So we might even have evidence that someone actually said you were too big for your britches, or in your case, it might be something slightly less backwoods. But who do you think you are that you could ask for this toy? Who do you think you are that you could go to this type of school for who do you think you are that you could be famous or that you could do this. So we get used to people, even if they don't say it outright, we probably have some sort of evidence that says, I shouldn't think that much of myself that I could have that dream. So what's the problem with this? What happens to us when we get this messaging that we can't be too confident, we can't be too self-important? And as kids, we don't know the difference. Like, we're pretty all or nothing little beings, when we're growing up. And so to have the perspective that, okay, I don't know how much is too much confidence, but I don't want to have that. So I'm going to err on the side of not having enough confidence. That is usually safer, because if you don't have enough confidence, you're not going to be putting yourself out there as much, which means you'll be less exposed to people's criticism, thinking that you are selfish or too self-important. Now, the reason that it's a problem is because this also cripples you from dreaming. I mean, I just want to use one example from my childhood. This is going back to 8-year-old Elyssa. We would get, if you ever got this growing up, maybe if you grew up somewhere around the Midwest like I did in the US, we got these little things from Publishers Clearinghouse, right? And it's like a competition, or it's not a competition. It's almost like a lottery or something. Like, you would buy the magazines and then you would put the stickers on the page and then you would mail it in, and somebody is going to win $1 million. And so I had this big idea that, like, I should win them. I feel like I need to win the $1 million, And I actually look back at that time as like, I believe God has always been calling me to be a wealthy woman so that I can help people. Because in my little 8-year-old mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure so mom and dad don't have to work. I'm going to buy our house. Like, I'm 8 and I'm thinking about the financial stability of the family. Like, that's what I want to use my money for, even, and that has stayed true with me. But if someone had ever come in, which no one did, but if someone had ever come in and said, who do you think you are that you would be wealthy? Who do you think you are? There are millions of entries for this contest, for this sweepstakes. Why do you think you should win? It would have absolutely taken the wind out of my sails. Now, the wind was still taken out of my sails when I consistently did this for like 3 years and nothing came of it. We never won the $1 million, spoiler alert. But that's an example of a time where I could imagine an adult walking in and like squashing my dreams in that moment. Now, I have imposter syndrome issues for a lot of other reasons, but that's a great example of where if you did something like that, where you were really dreaming and someone came in and told you it was an unreasonable dream, you would have automatically, as a child, interpreted that it's not an unreasonable dream because that doesn't happen very often. It's an unreasonable dream because I don't deserve it. So then we have this deservingness complex, and we can't dream, and we play small, and we people please because we can't risk rejection or abandonment by thinking too much of ourselves. So it can become this thing that in adulthood is paralyzing. Recently, I led our first Exhale to Accelerate luxury women's retreat. And one of the themes there, when we were talking about, I walked the ladies through an exercise to dream, just dream big. What is that next level of lifestyle? And some of the women were really stuck on, I don't see how I could get there and I don't feel like I deserve it. Because we've been groomed to believe that we only deserve good things when we work so hard and we can show that we have scars from the hard work. And that's the only time that you deserve good things. But here's what I'm here to tell you today. You deserve good things because you are a living being. You deserve good things because your heart is kind and you are doing your best. You deserve good things because you exist. And you know what? We need you to experience good things so that you can recharge yourself when you need it and show up as the best, highest version of you. Because when you're bringing your genius, when you're bringing your contributions, when you're bringing everything that you have to offer because you feel great, you're living your dream life, you have the things that you want in your life, you're surrounded with peace and love and ease. When you believe you deserve to go after those things and actually attain them, that's when you're at your best. And that's when the rest of us can benefit from what you have to offer. So it's a beautiful, selfless act to believe that you are deserving of your dreams and to believe that you, even if you don't know how, even if you can't see the bridge between here and there, to believe that you can have something more than what you have right now. So imposter syndrome says it's dangerous to believe that because you will be rejected or abandoned. Here's why that's a good thing. Imposter syndrome is one of our protector parts. It comes from a place of wanting to protect us. In the wild, in cavewoman days, are we going to risk being kicked out of the herd of humans that we're a part of? No, we're not going to survive that. Actually, literally not going to survive. So we can't risk rejection and abandonment. Think of an infant, a toddler, a young child. They're not going to risk actual physical abandonment from their tribe, from their parents. So it's a good thing that imposter syndrome says be smaller, work harder, be quieter, play smaller. It's a good thing for a while. But when we become grown women, when we become grown adults who have something to offer, I believe that you're listening to this podcast and you've been brought here to this episode today because you have something to offer. So if we are to actually impact the world, because the statistics show that women who are wealthy and who have notoriety like fame, they use those two resources to help other women and children. And we raise up the population around us. So we need that. We need that from each woman in our society and in the global community to understand that, hey, if I don't dream, I'm cheating everyone out of what I could be offering and what I could be bringing as my highest version of me. So the problem with it is that you can't even be your authentic self if you're constantly limiting yourself by what you perceive is other people's ceiling for you. That's what imposter syndrome looks like as an adult, is you are constantly trying to make decisions based on what you think is acceptable to the people around you. So it involves perfectionism, it involves people pleasing, and then you'll probably procrastinate things because you don't feel deserving. You don't feel like it's okay for you to want that next level. So here is the solution. Your imposter syndrome is trying to do you a favor, and you're going to let it release because of a couple of different things. Number one, there's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is an effect that has been coined as a result of several studies that have been done on people who are unable to perceive that their skills and their level of deservingness of success is actually less than what they think. They are actual imposters, okay? So people who suffer from Dunning-Kruger effect are imposters. And so and the thing with people that deal with this is that they are unable to be self-aware to even imagine that they wouldn't be deserving of the success that they're going after or the success that they have. So if you are an imposter, you cannot even wonder if you are an imposter. You don't have that capacity. So if you're wondering if you deserve to be at that next level, if you're wondering, who am I to do this? That means you're actually not an imposter. You're probably assessing your skills better than you think you are and more accurately. Okay. So in that case, if we know that you're actually not an imposter, you're actually not someone who needs to really self-evaluate because, you don't just want to throw yourself out there. You're going to look ridiculous because you're not actually good at this. You don't actually deserve it. And who do you think you are? And are you too big for your britches? That's not you. So if we know that those things aren't true, because if they were true, you wouldn't be able to see it about yourself. You wouldn't even be able to wonder, am I an imposter? Do I deserve this? Then we have to just go straight to the nervous system and make it comfortable with taking your next step, which may be just allowing yourself to dream, which may be taking a step towards your dreams, which may be putting yourself out there, becoming more visible for your business or your job or your networking, or just in general, making friends in a new location. So you get to take that next big step. You get to start the podcast, write the book, start the business, start the hobby, because who you are is deserving because you are. Now, to communicate the safety to your nervous system, we go back to things like the 3 S's. You take your 3 deep breaths. You take a break when you're feeling it like it's overwhelming. I'm such an imposter and it's overwhelming. I got to take a break. And then you go nurture your system, nurture your body, nurture your 5 senses. That's the second S in the 3 S's is self-nurturing. And then the third S is support. Be here. Listen to my voice telling you that we need you and you are enough. Find friends, find coaches, find loved ones who will reflect back that you're allowed to play big. Okay. So if you want help with this, you're always welcome to book your free 15-minute chat with me, because I will, in an Unlock Your Blocks focus call, I will help ask you questions where we can identify where this started for you so that you can get free of it and go get your dreams. I hope this was helpful for you today. I will see you here next time. We're going to keep unraveling all of the things that we thought we had to believe about ourselves that make things difficult on a day-to-day life, in our day-to-day lives, including perfectionism, which, by the way, you'll notice that I leave in a lot of the mistakes that I make on the podcast because we're not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect right now. We are being real, and we're going after the higher levels of life that we were meant for. So I hope this was helpful. Take such good care of yourself, and I'll see you here next time.